This episode was recorded several weeks before the You Know What hit, and we will continue to put out our Sunday episodes until we reach where we are right now in real time.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we will continue to put out extras as we have been doing, covering off the current situation. But also, if there's anything that you would like us to discuss in front of camera, then let us know in the comments below. After all, we do have a little bit of time on our hands.
So let's get on with the video.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Roy's Ropes. Now, before any of you clever dicks out there point out that there is no such thing as a rope on a boat, there is. What are they, Roy?
Well, there's quite a few. Bell rope, bolt rope, probably the two commonest. Man rope, foot rope. So there's four. So there's plenty of them.
What are we going to do today then?
Just a quick eye splice, 3-strand rope. You don't find a lot of 3-strand rope on a boat now, but when it does come up, a lot of people don't know how to use it. It's very simple, easier than anything else than multi-strand rope. So it's yeah, very basic.
Roy, fire away.
Rightio, so it's just 3-strand rope. Unlay it 3 or 4 turns. So you've got 3. Just get the size you want for the eye and put one either side and one in the middle on the top. Where you want the size of the eye, you just pick up that strand, just the one strand, and tuck the first one through. That's the first one through. Put that aside and it just goes through the next one to it. That's the first 2 in, then you flip it over. There's got to be one coming out between each strand and the rope, so that's the only way it can go. It's got to go back around the other way. So it comes through there. And that's the first tuck completed. You just nip them up. That's the first tuck completed. One coming out between each pair of strands. And you can just pick up any one. And it's a case of going over one and under one. So it's coming out there, goes over this one, under the next one.
So tell us about the different fibres that you can use this on and how easy they are to work with.
Well, it was traditionally made in natural fibre, either manila or sisal rope, and because it's not so slippery, you only need 3 tucks. But with this stuff, because man-made fibre, this one's nylon, it's very slippery, so you give it an extra tuck. When they're cut off, it'll be a nice tapered splice.
So how do you prepare the ends of those 3 strands?
Well,
then?
with nylon it's good because you can just cut it off with a hot knife.
Yep.
And flatten it out and it will never pull through.
I was filming then, so I didn't actually catch any of that. So undo a whole load.
Yeah. That's probably enough.
Yep. Okay.
So just fold her over with as big as you want the eye.
Right.
And put one either side and the middle one on the top.
Okay. So, with more than a little bit of help from my friend, that's my first splice, and I have to say, and I'm happy to admit this on camera, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I have never done this before. I've never had a need to, surprisingly. I think a lot of the time I tend to take a shortcut and just bowl in the end where I should actually be splicing. Anyway, so that's 3 strands line, not rope, line. How is it with 7 strand?
With
So, would it be 8?
yeah, 8.
8.
Yeah. Well, you can get 4-stranded rope in this as well.
So your typical halyard though, for example?
It's a different system altogether. We can get into that one day if you want, but it's just trying to get your head around it. It's easy once you know how. The core runs down through the outer coating, the outer sleeve, and vice versa, so they lock in. But yes, it took me a while to get my head around it, but you can get there. It's not so bad once you've done it a few times.
So since we're out and about with Roy's ropes, Roy pointed out an old RNLI lifeboat which has come into the marina and owned by an English guy who's been doing it up over some time. I'm going to go and have a look. So this lifeboat was commissioned in 1962 at a cost of £40,000, and it was a present to the RNLI from a Mr. Hawker, I believe. And it was decommissioned in 1987, did about 150 services and saved 53 lives. So it's got a bit of heritage, and we understand now that the current owner is using it for fishing charters, but they're doing a great job doing it up. She looks really beautiful. Switching to camera phone to do this little bit because I can't really take my camera to the hospital, which is where we are going. Where am I looking? I'm not used to vlogging on this. And we're going to hospital because Liz, it turns out, has a huge carbuncle on her back, and we are off this morning to see the specialist and possibly get it cut out. Well, get it cut out. I wonder if we can record this process. So here we are in the hospital, and the good news is that Liz has seen the specialist. Turns out it's not a carbuncle, it's just some kind of infection. And I have to say, actually, it's gone down a lot since I last had a look at it. But this is continuing our theme of modernity in Asia, and proof that even the hospital facilities they have here, albeit private hospital, are excellent. I mean, just look at this place. Now, this is new hospital, they've just opened, but this whole first floor is just full of specialists, skin specialists, neuro specialists, and so on. And being able to come in, pay 30 ringgit for consultancy, and then a little bit more obviously for surgery today, is just great. It's literally just walking off the street. Haven't even had to give passport details to register accounts or anything like that. So yeah, it's just a real positive thing having these kind of facilities here. And also, I think there's some kind of argument to say that if you can afford it, then why not pay private? Because that then frees up the public services to those who can't afford it. Don't know. What do you think? Do you think that's fair?
If you're squeamish, you may want to skip the next 60 seconds.
Looking good, Liz. Yeah. It's just rubbing lots of iodine over you. So Liz is just receiving a local, I think. Does it hurt that much, Liz?
Not too bad.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Painful?
No, I can't feel anything at the moment.
Yeah.
Good. He's digging away inside there, yeah, with tweezers.
Okay.
Oh, now he's scooping it out with a little, looks like a tiny sugar spoon.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Wish I could see it. It was all over in 15 minutes. I didn't feel a thing, but it didn't half feel sore when the anaesthetic wore off. Medical care in Malaysia is excellent, in fact all over Southeast Asia. We've used hospitals in Thailand and Indonesia too. The public hospitals are good and often don't make any charge even to tourists. We've been fortunate to find facilities just like these on our doorstep everywhere we've cruised.
Today is the big day. We leave Miri Marina. Yes! And we leave behind some troublesome memories, in particular Millie, of course, plus the one or two other things I can't bother to go into. But we've got this issue with tides. It means that we can't leave the marina until sundown, and around here we've got these strange double tides as well. So when the tide falls, and it's a spring tide at the moment, they drop away as you'd expect, but as they rise you've got one tide and then it sort of levels off, and then you've got another tide. So we're going to try and leave around about 6:30. So before we do that, we're just doing a quick oil change, and no point in me going on about how to do an oil change, it's pretty straightforward. But one tool in case you don't have it, well, I don't seem to have it either because I can't bloody find it. Right, here we go. Quite often the oil filter is quite difficult to take off, so very useful just to have a strap like this. And the way this works is you put it around the filter itself, pull it up, tighten it, and then twist to unturn. So that's what I've got to do now as I do this oil change. What else is there to report other than it's about time we got out of here. We left at sundown with 1 metre under the keel and anchored beyond the gas pipelines just up the coast. Unfortunately that night a southwesterly squall came through. We were completely exposed and it became one of the most uncomfortable anchorages imaginable, with the boat bucking and straining in a big swell. And just before going to bed I heard some unusual sloshing sounds coming from the bilges. It's midnight and I've just heard this rather strange sloshing sound to find the bilges full of water, and I think I've identified the problem. It's the raw water inlet pipe in the engine. I think a hose clamp has gone on one of the hoses. Yep, so the Jubilee clip or the hose clamp is completely corroded. Well, as you can imagine, because Liz had gone to bed, I wasn't really in a situation where I could film what was going on. So just to quickly talk through what I did. First thing was, of course, was to run the bilge pumps. We've got 2 electric bilge pumps, which slowly drained the water. And next I went round trying to identify where the leak was. And the first thing that I thought, because it was salt water, was perhaps the flexible coupling had gone. So that meant removing everything from the horrible cupboard in order to get access to that, which means basically putting all the boxes all around the boat. And you can imagine whilst the boat is bucking and moving around, that was quite difficult in itself. There wasn't any leak from the flexible coupling, but whilst I was down there, I was able to hear the dripping sound coming from what turned out to be the raw water hose. And what happened was a hose clamp had corroded and it had basically fallen off and was allowing that water to come running in. So obvious lessons learnt here. Always double clamp all your hose fittings, and no excuses really. I didn't check it. I hadn't realised there weren't 2 clamps on there. And another tip that we got from our friend Brendan, who recommended to always have a spare hose clamp loosely attached to the hose somewhere up the other end of the attachment. So if this situation arises, you at least have a spare hose clamp in situ that you can quickly slip into place. That's a really, really good tip. And finally, I guess you might be asking, well, why didn't the bilge pumps go off? Well, if you remember, a few months ago, we had a siphon problem. So whilst we were in Miri Marina, we were occasionally getting this random siphon occurring from the bilge outlet. So whilst in the marina, because I was able to keep an eye on it, I actually turned off the bilge pumps and closed off the seacock to our bilge outlet and forgot to turn it back on when we went out to sea. A few lessons learned there. Well, it's been an extremely bumpy night, and I just thought I would try and capture some footage before we weigh anchor, if we can weigh anchor, that is. I don't know how much this is going to come out. I was hearing noises on the boat that I've never heard before. Snubber held though. So pretty moody start to the day. Managed to get the anchor up. Took a bit of going backwards and forwards, left and right, but it was up. But we've now got to negotiate these few anchored ships, but more importantly the rigs and the pipelines that litter this whole area. So we're just coming round to the headland now, which basically divides Sarah with Brunei. So as I said, I actually wasn't expecting this, but we are sailing, which is great. So of course down this coast normally you'd expect northeasterlies. We're in the northeast monsoon, but after the squalls last night they seem to have brought with them southerlies, which is great because we've got it just forward of the beam. So nice sail hitting 5 knots with a reefed head sail, the mizzen and the staysail. And one highlight of the journey so far is that we ran over a fishing net whilst we were motor sailing, and there was almighty whack whilst Liz at the same time pointed out the fishing net, which I hadn't spotted. Followed the line up and sure enough there were some fishermen paying out a fishing net. I thought they were actually putting out pots, but there we go. So put the boat into a stern whilst we were still sailing, just to unravel anything that may have caught up, but I think we definitely ripped his net, and I was half expecting him to come chasing after us, but he didn't. I think we're too far away now for him to follow up, but that was a bit of excitement. But yeah, this is great, getting some sailing in. So the deal here is that there are many platforms, wells, vents, old platforms and so on. And they all seem to be over the 10-metre contour line, so I thought we'd take a slight detour and actually just kiss that 10-metre contour line up the coast. So we're actually adding an extra mile by turning back down onto the coast, but it's just a little bit safer, I think, I hope, than actually going through the centre of all those platforms and obstructions. Behind me are the oil fields. Not only can you see platforms, you also see vents as well. They're the tall, thin, chimney-like things that stick out. But of course, for every object that's above the waterline, there's also obstructions under the waterline. And quite often they are disused platforms which have been cut down. Sometimes they put mooring buoys on them, but sometimes not. So this is why it's important to keep a keen eye on both the chart data and eyeballing. But it's been a good day today, after a rather hectic night last night and not a lot of sleep. Today we started off with a great sail, which was quite surprising. Wasn't expecting that. Generally the wind comes from the northeast here, but we had that southeasterly squall that came through, and so we got good sailing just before that came through, and then when that came through as well, helped push us along a bit. It was up the arse, so we didn't pole out the Yankee. Too tired for that, so we just flew with the mizzen and a flapping staysail, but we were still hitting 6.5 knots, which was pretty cool. Right now we are approaching land. Still probably got another couple of hours at least to go, but we've made really good time because when we left we estimated we'd arrive at 11 at night, but it looks like it's going to be 8 o'clock at night instead, which is always good. Millie, meanwhile, has fared quite well today. We've seen some encouraging signs. She took her position in the cockpit. She even got as far as cleaning herself, which we haven't seen her do for ages. She's a little bit grubby at the moment. We just tried to feed her just now and she threw it all up straight away. And that's because we mixed some special magic pills along with her renal food and some multivitamin paste, and it came straight up within a minute, so I'm gonna have to rethink that strategy. But anyway, we're both pretty exhausted after last night. A little bit rolly here, but nice little sunset as well. It's all good.